Mr. President, you ought to know that this nation is more a tale of two cities than it is just a shining city on a hill. Maybe, Mr. President, if you visited some more places, maybe if you went to Appalachia where some people still live in sheds, maybe if you went to Lackawanna where thousands of unemployed steel workers wonder why we subsidize foreign steel.
The religious guidance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have never bombed any churches, have never murdered any little girls, as was done in Birmingham, have never lynched anybody, have never at any time been guilty of initiating any aggressive acts of violence during the entire 33 years or more that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been teaching us. The charge of violence against us actually stems from the guilt complex that exists in the conscious and subconscious minds of most white people in this country. They know that they've been violent in their brutality against Negroes, and they feel that someday the Negro is going to wake up and try and do unto them as they have done do unto the whites as the whites have done unto us. We aren't a violent group. We are taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to obey the law, to respect everyone who respects us. We're taught to display courtesy, to be polite. But we're also taught that at any time anyone in any way inflicts or seeks to inflict violence upon us, we are within our religious rights to retaliate in self-defense to the maximum degree of our ability. We never initiate any violence upon anyone, but if anyone attacks us, we reserve the right to defend ourselves. So to accuse us of being violent is like accusing a man who is being lynched, who is being hung on a tree, simply because he struggles vigorously against his lyncher. The victim is accused of violence, but the lyncher is never accused of violence. And I only point this out because the various racist groups that are set up in this country by whites and who have actually practiced violence against blacks for 400 years are never associated or identified or made synonymous with the term violence. But whites speak of Muslims almost synonymously with violence. Whenever Muslims are mentioned by them, violence is brought up, but it's not connected with any other group. This is a sort of a propaganda tactic, or what I would call psychological warfare.
Don't change up your agreement. I'm going to try to walk through it. All right. Love folks. Don't try to harm me. Keep your word. I can keep you safe. All right? Don't worry about safety. I'm not a fucking murderer. All right? Try to harm me. Try to harm you. All right?
Do it.
Get on the ground!
Get on the ground! Get on the ground now! Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
Don't make noise!
Put up! Move it up!
Get your hands up!
Still got the knives in his hand? Still got the knives in his hand.
Still got his knives in his hand. Put your hands out to your side and drop the knife. Hands out to your side.
Beanbag! Beanbag!
Drop the knife!
Drop the knife!
Drop the knife!
Still got the knife in his hand. Negative effect. Good one, dog on him? I can get him on him. Yeah, I don't want that knife in his head. Very good. I'll be your hands free.
The family says the person who shot and killed their beloved pet was a police officer.
I heard a pop, 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 and I was like, what is going on? So I stood up and looked out this window right here on my house, and I see the St. Louis Police Department standing over my dog that's all bloodied, laying right here.
Brian Getzinger is describing the shocking scene he saw in his backyard around 3 this afternoon. His beloved golden retriever Scout had been shot.
The cop came out, opened up my gate, the dog came out, he cornered him right over here, and the dog growled at him. So he shot him, or he shot once, and then the dog ran over here, and that's where he emptied his firearm out, right here in my lawn.
Lori Wansley was visiting her mother, who lives across the street from the family. She says the dog was in her mother's yard for just a few minutes before it headed back home and ran into the officer.
It wasn't provoked, it wasn't warranted. He just started shooting him. He just kept shooting him in the head. And I saw it like 6 or 8 times, and I just couldn't believe it. And I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "He's just a puppy."
I just couldn't believe that, let alone the police were in my yard shooting anything, let alone my dog, who is sweet. He's been our family pet for at least 8 years. We've had him since he was a puppy. My daughter sleeps with him periodically, and he's just the nicest dog. He's never attacked anyone ever. So I just couldn't understand why someone would shoot him.
Still alive, the dog was rushed to the vet, but later died. Getzinger says the family is devastated.
They're sad, you know. It's been our family pet for a long time, so.
This is an oral summary of Miracle Number 2, the prediction of the Boston Marathon bombings. 7 days before the Boston Marathon bombings, the Messiah sent Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts a draft copy of My Model of Your Reality. It is easier to raise strong children than to fix broken men. And this was not a coincidence, simply a demonstration of the predictive behavior section of my model. The abilities to tell the future is not unique to advanced souls. There are many instances I list in the document called The Hand of God, and divine intervention is also manifest in the courtesy copy of the letter sent to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. So in this document, it's important to recognize that ignorance has life and death consequences. So when you ignore the Messiah's request for Nobel Prize nominations, people suffer and die. And so what I do with this document is to compare the gains in wealth and that is allowed to be created, and people not injured, and so that wealth is added to the positive side. So within the first year of the implementation of my model, all the recommendations, the wealth allowed to be created and not destroyed is $2.8 trillion. Let me repeat that again. In 1 year, the gains from implementing all the recommendations of my model, in real terms, 1 year, $2.8 trillion. Now, what I do here is just to compare my gains after 1 year with those of two other Nobel Prize recipients, Albert Einstein and the discoverer of the DNA. So let's start with Albert Einstein, and just specifically we'll stick to the one equation, E equals mc squared, which was used to convince the United States to develop the atom bomb. But because WASP's favorite crime, personal crime, is mass murder, the atomic bombs were dropped on, 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Japan. Unnecessarily. Yes, Oliver Stone's documentary shows that this was a war crime, and you can go on YouTube and listen to generals of that era state that dropping the bombs on Japan was a war crime, but that's what this piece of shit of a country does, is war crimes, like the invasion of Iraq. And you can hear Malcolm X talk about some of them also. So far, we have mass murder, thank you, Albert Einstein, And how about nuclear reactors? Let's just blame that on him too. So nuclear reactors produce waste that takes 50,000 years to decay, and we are still suffering right now from radiation from Fukushima. And if we don't decommission 420 nuclear reactors before I blow the Yellowstone supervolcano in order to save the planet, we'll have a cooler planet, but the atmosphere will be radioactive. Okay, so let's compare Manny's accomplishments in 1 year. Okay, so Albert Einstein 0, Manny, the Messiah 1. Okay, so let's compare the discoverers of DNA. Okay, Manny 2,800,000,000,000. After 1 year of their discovery, nothing, right? And we'd be further along with our use of DNA if you hadn't allowed females to control your civilization and destroy everybody's brain cells, lower everybody's IQ, destroy everybody's DNA, get rid of cancer for the last 100 years. So, the Messiah 2, other Nobel Prize winner 0, and that's basically all this document pointed out, was that by not implementing my solutions, by ignoring my original request for Nobel Prize nominations in 2007, millions of people have been injured and killed, and all the blood of all those deaths and all that suffering is on the hands of those who ignored my previous requests for Nobel Prize nominations in 2007.
This question of violence has become more and more important, especially as the summers progress. It seems that the summers are equivalent with violence in many of the cities. There have been many complaints among many people that some of the violence is not necessarily directed at civil rights, at human rights, but is more an excuse by some people for a vandalism type.
That analysis itself is an excuse by the society itself for its own failure to have eliminated the negative conditions that exist in black communities. When you find the criminal conditions that exist in the black community and have existed for so long, it's only natural to expect the degree of frustration to mount in those communities to such degree that an explosion is inevitable. And in these explosions, one doesn't plan to be polite or to direct his energy, his exploding energy, in any one direction. This is something to expect in any explosion. That's a sociological explosion, or an explosion that stems from social conditions that are criminal. You don't expect everybody in that area to explode intelligently and legally and lawfully and politely. You have all types of elements in that community.
This is one of the major problems, is that there are many explosions going on, and what I'm wondering is if it would not be easier to prevent the explosion than try to pick up all the pieces after it happened.
It would be more intelligent to prevent the explosion rather than to pick up the pieces after it happens. But again, you're dealing with a power structure that consists primarily of politicians. And instead of trying to remove the causes of the explosion, they deal with the conditions, so to speak. And leave the causes there. When the black community becomes explosive, they get some big Negro leader and send him in to quiet the community down. They never remove the causes that create the conditions, but they have these little century-old methods that always have failed in instances like this.
Would you say that the work being done now in the South by people that are from some of the other civil rights organizations like SNCC and CORE and the NAACP towards voter registration, towards education of these people, is this at all useful? Does this fit into your idea?
Education is first. Voter registration is second.
But you do see this as helping.
Yes, education is the first step toward solving any problem that exists anywhere on this earth, which involves people who are oppressed. As a rule, the oppressed people lack education, and this has affected their ability to affected their ability to cope with their problem. themselves, and their inability to cope with their own problem places them at the mercy of someone else who's supposed to come up with a solution for their problem, but who can without a conflict of interest. It's only when the masses of people can approach their own problem that their problem will be solved. If you react to defend yourself, I don't call your reaction violence. And all I say in this context of violence is that our people never will initiate acts of aggression indiscriminately against whites. But I do say that the black man in this country, if he's attacked, he should strike back. Yes, I say that even if it costs him his life, he should strike back. He should in no time, no matter what the odds are, let someone come and issue a beating upon him when he's doing nothing other than seeking his rights as a human being. No, he should fight back if it costs him his life. And if he has to take life in fighting back, he shouldn't even hesitate to do so. If someone is trying to take his life, he shouldn't hesitate to take the lives of those Klan-like elements that are trying to take his life. No.
I will end this first of a series of 3 videos by reading the letter sent to New York Governor Andrew Mark Cuomo, which was a complete copy of my model and his courtesy copy of the letters and the complete copy of the model sent to New York Mayor Bill de Blasio. And it reads as follows. To New York Governor Andrew Mark Cuomo, this is your copy of my model of your reality titled, It is Easier to Raise Strong Children Than to Fix Broken Men, that was sent to New York Mayor Bill de Blasio at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Time on December 22nd, 2014. In addition is included another example of divine intervention that manifested itself that same day at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Regarding protecting millions of African and Hispanic Americans from being injured and killed by wasp pigs and Nobel Prize nominations for peace and medicine. Hey, Mayor Bill de Blasio. This is the first of many examples of divine intervention directly tied to the Messiah's request for Nobel Prize nominations sent to Mayor Bill de Blasio and Governor Andrew Mark Cuomo. The Messiah sent his request to the mayor at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Time. What else occurred later that same day that indicates that the hand of God is at work with the Messiah's quest to delay the destruction of his father's planet? This announcement was made on December 22nd, 2014 at 9:06 p.m. Eastern Time. And quote, ex-officer not charged in fatal Milwaukee shooting. December 22nd, 2014, 9:06 p.m. Eastern Time. Milwaukee County District Attorney John Grisham said Christopher Manny, spelled M-A-N-N-E-Y, won't be charged because he shot Donnorrhea Hamilton in self-defense, which is bullshit. He killed an unarmed black man who was defending himself from this scumbag. Manny, spelled M-A-N-N-E-Y, is at least the third inbred wasp mass murdering rabid dog American fucking pig across the country to avoid charges in the past month after a confrontation that led to a black man's death, or should I say a black unarmed man's death. Notice the spelling of this typical American mass murdering rabid dog's last name. M-A-N-N-E-Y. Manny, notice my nickname, Manny, M-A-N-N-Y. Are there any similarities? Did I have secret knowledge that this announcement was going to be made the same day I made the most recent request for Nobel Prize nominations?
And no, there is no such fucking thing as coincidence, yidholes. Did I go back in time and arrange for this shit for brains Christopher Manny to change his name just so this request for Nobel Prize nominations would be made the same day that another manifestation of a corrupt, insane, suicidal civilization was made public, which confirms that all wasp pigs must be immediately replaced by RoboCop technology, as the Messiah is stating in this request for Nobel Prize nominations, in order to state that this is just another sign of divine intervention. And did the Messiah, brackets, the good one without an E, close brackets, force the scumbag, wasp, feminized dick breath Milwaukee County District Attorney John Grisham to announce on December 22nd, 2014 at 9:06 p.m. Eastern Time, brackets, just before Christmas, close brackets, that another Nazi fucking pig has legally been allowed to lynch another unarmed minority citizen whose skin was not that disgusting pasty color of the typical mass-murdering American psycho. This argument sounds exactly like the kind of crazy-ass, inbred, Republican birther, KKK, NRA, mental diarrhea honky fucks use to justify disrespecting my president. Let me point out how these corrupt Nazi fucking wasp pigs intentionally delayed the announcement that no indictment would be made, even though the decision had been made much earlier in order to show disrespect, inflict additional pain, and ruin the holiday of African murder victims. Just like the menopausal, mercury-crazed, toxoplasma gondii-infected psycho bitches at the California Unemployment Office tried to do to the Messiah, which is example number 2 of typical American mass-murdering, wasp, genetic garbage behavior and divine intervention. The shit for brains in Ferguson waited until Thanksgiving week, and the wasp genetic garbage in Milwaukee County District Attorney John Grisham intentionally waited until Christmas week to announce what everybody already knows, that wasp pigs are sadistic scumbags, criminals with badges and blue uniforms that must all be replaced by robots controlled by Indians in India. No amount of training will stop the insane, suicidal behavior of wasps or the NYPD. The mass murder of the Charleston 9 proves that pretty much, I would say. The frequency of mass killings by wasps in general can only increase in frequency. My model of your reality, titled "It is easier to raise strong children than to fix broken men," is based upon the laws of mathematics, physics, chemistry, and genetics. This means my mathematics and conclusions cannot be challenged by your social media diarrhea, mental garbage. My model is divided into sections called miracles with individual directories. All supporting documentation referenced within the document should be within the same directory or in the generic images directory. Directory number 1 reads, the following 7 documents together are miracle number 1. 1 of 7. The reasons for mass killings in America and the steps required to slow the frequency of mass murders. Number 2 of 7. The general effect at its cause. 3. The causes of brain damage leading to the permanent lowering of the American intelligence quotient. 4. The Americans responsible for mass murders, which we all know are wasp inbred scumbags with skin that disgusting pasty color. 5. The solutions for the 90-year drought. 6. The solution solar panel installation requires a full structural analysis I didn't include the text of that, but basically the city of Monterey Park has a very high concentration of wasps due to the fact that the sheriffs are stationed there and the emergency services for the county. So they don't accept global warming exists, wouldn't allow me to install an artificial lawn, which looked great. They want me to waste water instead of putting a beautiful artificial lawn in. They wouldn't allow me to put in solar panels or wind turbine, even though I live at the end of a canyon. I get wind every evening. Okay, moving on. Number 7, the solutions entire without water and solar, which I've inserted into a caption. It's titled, Hey, Xavier and John, to Xavier, the head of the Democratic caucus, and John the Boner, the head of the suicidal caucus. Miracle 2. The prediction of the Boston Marathon bombings. Miracle 3. Justice after the lynchings, protecting millions of Americans. Withheld insurance through the ACA for being injured and killed. Miracle 4. I'm taking 7 strokes off your game, Joe, so there are no more reasons for you not to run for president. I was hoping Joe Biden would run. I don't know what happened. Directory 7, cover sheets for lawsuits. Okay, so case ALH05C01527. ALH stands for Alhambra, California, which is Cardoza versus the Los Angeles Community College District, where the Messiah sues the Los Angeles Community College District for poisoning students with preservatives and anatomy and biology classes and poisons in chemistry classes, and for torturing, allowing tenured psycho bitch and psycho asshole WASP teachers, torturing their students with heat and giving them Adolf Hitler's birthday off as a holiday. And then case number ALH05C01481, which Cardoza versus Dorothy Dixon, typical American WASP psycho bitch, third wave feminist, misandric, male hating, who intentionally gives her male students lower grades. While only 3% of any of her classes are male, 99% of the clients against this bitch are from males. And I've also inserted what I'm reading here. Hey, Mayor Bill de Blasio, and also Hey, Xavier and John, which I've included in the texts. Okay, so reading on here. The totality of the model, when implemented, generates within the first year $2,320 billion of wealth. I am asking that you nominate me for the Nobel Prize for Peace for the totality of this work, and ask doctors and medical organizations to nominate me for the Nobel Prize in Medicine. The titles of the documents describe the subject being discussed within the miracle. With the resources of 2 Nobel Prizes, there is a 50-50 chance I will be able to delay the destruction of the planet long enough to establish lifeboat space, Moon, and Mars colonies. And at this point, I insert the article which states that the methane is rising from the Arctic seafloor, and that is why I'm stating that by the year 2045, due to regenerative global warming feedback cycles, the planet and all life are dead. With the resources of 3 Nobel Prizes, I can assure delay of the destruction of my father's planet long enough to establish colonies in the solar system, which will be assisted by the establishment of a universal faith for the entire planet. Only the Messiah has the knowledge, intelligence, and the help of divine intervention to accomplish these goals. This is why the timing of the mailing of these requests for Nobel Prize nominations is not random and are always followed by events which support the topic being specifically addressed within that request. Miracle 3, the prediction of the Boston Marathon bombings, is another perfect example of this phenomenon. Example number 2 is not just another example of divine intervention on the Messiah's behalf, but again supports the fact that all wasps in the unclean scrotums of albinos, the USA, are massively brain-damaged, insane, suicidal rabid dogs and the minions of Satan. This is a scan of the upper portion of the letter sent to the Messiah on December. Yeah, I'm gonna admit that, though that did piss me off just before Christmas. Okay, and we're gonna bypass that shit, and okay, and then we're gonna skip down to, okay, so we're gonna skip down, but enough of this boring crap, which it is boring. Let us move on to the real reason I have written to you, which is much more fun and immediately rewarding for all concerned. My model of your reality, titled "It is easier to raise strong children than to fix broken men," is my introduction and proves with exquisite detail that I am the only American who is not massively brain damaged, insane, and suicidal. And if you are a wasp, then you are also a rabid dog and a minion of Satan. Mayor Bill de Blasio is not a wasp by definition in the Messiah's world. The French and Native Americans of the disputed areas had good horizontal, the beast for two backs kind of relationships. Well, there should be a map showing about the war. What is it? The Native? Anyway, it was between the East Coast settlers and the French and the Indians on the west side of the battle.